All of our smoking is done in this smoker. And we start with an electric charcoal starter to get it going so that we don't use any lighter fluid, which will foul the insides and the flavor. We're going to use a combination of hickory and sherry wood chips for our smoke. What we're going to do is we're going to put them in here, fill it with water, let them soak. And once our fire gets going, we'll add them to the top, and that'll create a nice hickory cherry smoke. First things first, I want to show you that we've got our wood chips in this pot, covered with water so they won't just burn up. They'll smoke when we put them on top of the charcoal. But more importantly, it's right here what it is that we are going to be smoking. And this is pork butt. Beautiful and delicious cut of meats. Plenty of fat that will cook down and render this roast into extraordinary flavor. We use a special blend. Well, you can't read the label, it's worn out. I use this jar, I guess, over and over again. But this is my special seasoning, which I sprinkle generously over both sides. The special seasoning is equal parts salt, black pepper, red cayenne pepper, or an equivalent red pepper, and garlic powder. You notice I'm not afraid to tell you what my ingredients are, because I'm not a believer in secret recipes. I think recipes should be shared, not hoarded. You know, ultimately, it depends on the person who's making something, you know, how good it's going to turn out anyway. I'm also using on this today, I don't always do this, but today I'm going to add a little bit of rubbed sage. And this is special because this rubbed sage, in fact, came out of my garden, grown myself. I am also going to add, at the same time, some garlic. I always buy these jars of garlic that are pre-cut up. They're just so much more convenient than chopping my own. I mean, I like chopping my own sometimes too, but other times, you know, I just say, the heck with it. Let's cheat. Let's do this. Because I use garlic in virtually everything I make. Well, in a lot of things. And it saves a lot of time. And in the end, it doesn't. The flavor, there is no way you're going to tell the difference between this garlic and fresh garlic in most cooked things. Now, if you're doing rubbed garlic on bread or something like that, where it's roasted, that's a different story. But okay, so the meat is prepared. It's seasoned on both sides, and it's ready for the smoker. All right. It looks like the charcoal is a burning. And then before I push that in, I want to pull out the top section here. There's two sections in the burner. There's the burner, which you already saw where the charcoal was started. And then I fill this with water to create a thermal barrier of such sorts and between the fire and the upper section where we cook our meat. So that gets pushed back gently. It also adds steam so that keeps our final smoked meat moist. So that looks like it's good enough and ready that it can handle a few damp wood chips on the top, which will generate the smoke. Let me close that up. Then we're ready for the meat. And we will just grab it, throw it over there, and I'm going to use the pan underneath to collect all the drippings. Close it up. And don't touch it until we're ready to take it out. We have a thermostat over here which should read us, give us a reading. It's basically a meat thermometer. Try to keep it between 130 and definitely under 160, or else it will cook the meat rather than smoke the meat. A couple of things that I want to point out on our smoker here is that, number one, you can tell it's smoking well because of all the smoke. Can't see that. But there's two sets of vents on our smoker. One at the top and one at the bottom. And I want to leave the bottom ones closed generally. I leave the bottom closed once the fire gets going to keep the fire from getting out of control and to keep it burning slower. And I open the top as necessary to keep the temperature from getting too hot as well. So open at the top and cool the temperature that we're smoking at. Open at the bottom will stoke the fire and increase the temperature, so they kind of work opposite to one another. So right now, while we're building up temperature, we got it completely closed on the bottom because the fire's going good and producing lots of smoke. We don't need to reinvigorate the fire. And at the top, running at, I don't know, 150 degrees, so we're cool there. But we don't want to get any hotter, and that's why we have the top open. All right, it's time to take our pork roast out of the oven. We smoked it today in the smoker for about 4 hours at around 130 to 150 degrees, and then we finished it in the oven at 250 for about 3 hours. And that is what we end up with. So what we need to do is start pulling our pork. There you go. I just have to make a little bit of room here because this can get a little messy. And before we do, the one thing you need to know is that we have created or put the pork roast into a roaster with these guajillo peppers, and they were rehydrated in the dripping pan when we started, or when we had the roast in the smoker. And they were left in the juices while we finished it in the oven. So what we like to do is put those into a blender. So we've got our guajillos in the blender. So that is done. And that's going to make a nice sauce to add after we get this pork pulled. So if this is done right, it should just all pull off really nice like that. Shredding as we go. And oh, it's gonna be good. This is my favorite part of the process. When it's basically done. What you might notice about pork, it's kind of like white meat and dark meat in pork, just like there is in chicken. And I like the white meat is kind of like chicken breast, and the dark meat is kind of like chicken thighs, because the dark meat has a little more moisture and it's yummy. But they're different, and when you mix them together, they're ultimately they make a good mixture for your sandwiches or whatever you're going to use your pulled pork for. So you'll also notice that this pork roast has a bone, which most pork butts do have bones. About the only thing left to do is to taste it. Yep, that's good. So, there you have it. That's a pretty good batch of pulled pork. All that we need to do is add our liquid back in. Remember, this was the drippings, along with, I don't know, there was probably just a little over a cup of water in there just to keep the roast moist when we were smoking it, and then it was transferred into the roaster. But it's mostly the drippings and the guajillo peppers, which were put in the blender, and it makes a nice, savory, not sweet, almost like a nice barbecue sauce. And it is delicious. Today I've been talking to myself about smoked pulled pork. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself.